Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Buzz with Peaks and Valleys Building Company, and as you can see, we are not in the shop today. We're going to tackle something a little bit different. Let me show you. Alrighty, well, this is my work van. It's a 2019 ProMaster 2500, 136-inch wheelbase, high roof. And as you can see, we are in major need of some organization. So our plan is to build some tall divider cabinets and shelves, so we have dedicated spaces for the miter saw, table saw, the rolling the wall tough system, the ladders, and screw boxes. I mean, just a bunch of stuff that it's just laying around and it needs a home. So the first thing we need to do is empty all this out. Now, in addition to just regular organization, shelving, that kind of stuff, I'm also going to be doing a couple extra things. I'm going to be insulating the floor and applying some sound deadening material to the sheet metal on the inside of the van walls, just to reduce a little bit of road noise. So now that we have everything cleared out of the van, completely emptied out, I went ahead and took off all of the factory panels that kind of cover all this, and I'm installing something called Kill Mat. This is just a rubber membrane with a reflective coating, and it's basically just a sound deadening product. So let me give you an idea of what we're looking at. It's quite a difference. To install the Kill Mat panels, they're actually a self-adhesive. So you peel the backing, starting with your full pieces first, and place the panels as close or far apart as you'd like. And you just roll it out, ensuring a good adhesion. Alrighty, with all of our sound dampening material on, let's start the floor. For starters, I'm going to take measurements on the actual floor itself. Now, my cargo space is about 10 feet long and just under 6 feet wide. So I have 3 sheets of 4x8 7/16 zip system sheathing. Now that I have the measurements I need, I'm going to go ahead and get out the track saw and make some cuts. The way this body is made, I have a couple contour pieces that I'm going to need to scribe out, get the jigsaw out, and make some cuts. Okay, so that looks like a pretty good fit. Our scribe is a little gappy here, but we're actually going to be doing flooring over top of this, and this is a point where no weight will ever be, so I'm not really worried about it. Now our first piece is in, we can use that established edge to get measurements and make the rest. Now our second sheet is not without its struggles as well. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of the insulation that we're going to use for the flooring. It's 48 inches, so I measured from our existing sheet down to 48, and I can butt this piece of insulation right up to the previous piece, and I can use this to make a pattern. And this pattern is what we'll use to take over to the actual plywood itself and cut this wheel well out. Placing the pattern on our sheet of plywood that's already cut to length, we just line up the edges and make our mark. What using this pattern allows me to do now is to take it where I had it set like that. Okay, now I've just flipped it over and I've modified it because it already has my wheel well shape there. So I modified it to make a pattern from my third and final sheet of plywood to go ahead and wrap all the way back to the sidewall, out around here, and all the way back to the doors. Alrighty. Now that we have our floor pieces cut, we need to pull these back out, put the insulation down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this 1/4 inch insulation, styrofoam insulation, and I'm going to go ahead and use the spray adhesive method. You just spray on both sides, you wait for it to tack up a little bit, it usually takes about 2 minutes, and then you stick it on there, press it down firmly, and then you just cut the styrofoam away using the floor sheathing piece as your template. Well, now that we have our insulation attached to our sheathing, it's time to go ahead and attach everything to the actual substrate of the van. I'm just going to use some construction adhesive. This is a Gorilla brand, heavy duty. It's good stuff. What we'll do is we'll just run beads along all these raised ribs, and then we'll set weights in here and allow that to set. We also have some holes in the floor where some D-rings come from the manufacturer. So after we let everything set and let the glue set up a little bit, we'll come back through, we'll drill those holes out, run the D-rings back in, and that will also secure the floor in place. So now that we've let our construction adhesive set up, we're ready to move on to the flooring. Now for this particular project, I'm going to use some of this peel and stick. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping. Last night I actually went ahead and installed all the flooring. I used this peel and stick stuff that I mentioned earlier, adhesive backing, and I woke up this morning, came out and looked at it, and it was cupped and bubbled and everything, and I just really wasn't happy with how it turned out. So, that in mind, I went ahead and decided just to take it all back out, and luckily the adhesive wasn't very good, because then it just popped right off. It does say that there's supposed to be some sort of primed membrane if you're going to go over an OSB or plywood, but the zip system has that, and apparently, you know, just live and learn, and those two, that adhesive and that surface just didn't bond very well. So instead what I'll be using is just this regular laminate flooring. This is my second van build out. I built out a van for work and for overlanding, camper van, that kind of stuff. And I actually used this exact product in that van. I worked out of it for 2 years. I took multiple cross-country road trips in it. I have never seen it buckle, crack, chip, move around. None of that stuff has happened. So I think this is going to be a much better product for me to use, and I think this is going to give me a better result. It's not a total loss because we now have pieces of flooring that were already installed that are actually cut to all the contours of all of the different lines and wheel wells inside the van. So we actually have templates for all of our new pieces, so that will save us some time. Sometimes this happens in projects. Sometimes you have a plan, you try something out, you might try something new out, and it doesn't come together the way you thought it would. And I think it's important during a process like this to take a couple times, a step back, and ask yourself, is this exactly what I'm going for? Is this the result that I was looking for? It's really just me being of service to my future self. I know that I'll be in this van in a month, and I will come out here to get tools out, or I'll come out here to grab something, and I will see that floor buckled and popping loose in places, and I will just ask myself, you know, why didn't I just take the time to just do it properly? So with that in mind, let's go ahead and do flooring number 2. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and fix this to the floor. So instead of using spacer blocks, I'm using construction adhesive, and I've pre-drilled and sank some screws down to hold it to the subfloor itself. That will allow that first course to stay nice and straight and stable, so we can knock all the other courses into it and not risk them moving. Well, I gotta say, this is much better. Much more what I was going for. And with this done, we can finally get around to start putting some machines in here and get our layout for all the storage. Okay, I've placed most of my bigger items in the van, and I've marked out on the floor with tape as reference marks for the spacing in between. Get the track saw, start cutting down some widths. Alright, with all of our pieces cut down to height, we're going to go over to the table saw and start cutting everything to a consistent width. Alrighty, day 3. So as you see yesterday, I spent some time going ahead and making up some of the shelving units. I have based the shelving unit around my rolling miter saw, table saw, some ladder storage, and then I have some DeWalt bins and drawers and stuff that are going to go in some of these places. So now that I have the bulk of the organization figured out, I'm just going to start filling in some spots and making some secondary storage. The general construction of these cabinets is fairly straightforward. We're just using glue and pocket hole screws, and that's going to give us plenty of support for what we're going to be putting in here. For drilling out our pocket holes, we just make some registration marks, and then I take a speed square and just extend them up for my Kreg jig. This is the 520 Pro jig, and you just put it on here, you line up the holes, squeeze it down, and drill your holes. When using any Kreg jig, the most important thing is to make sure that your depth setting is set at the proper location. I'm using 3/4 inch ply, so you just set it to the 3/4 mark, and that allows you to drill this nice little hole, and it just gives a little pre-drill spot out of the end grain. To apply what we're calling our fixed shelving, basically just the shelves that are going to be in here permanently, everything else is going to have shelf pins and be adjustable, so as my tool collection grows, it changes, it has a way to adapt and grow with me. So what I've done here is I've marked out where this shelf is going to go. I've placed a couple clamps at the back just to hold the back of the shelf up, and I've made a few registration marks for the bottom of the shelf. Now we have our pocket holes drilled. We'll just make sure that face is nice and flush, and then we'll line it up and tap it in. Now that we have our cabinets constructed, we're going to go ahead and add this little detail trim here. It's just a piece of poplar that I've ripped down to 3/4, and we're just going to put some glue on it and tack it into place just to cover that plywood edge and give it a little bit more finished look. To attach the face trim, we're just going to put a little bit of glue on the back and secure it with some 18 gauge brad nails. Welcome back. Well, it's been about 2.5–3 weeks since I filmed the build portion of this video, and in that time I've been working, on and off job sites, and just allowing that little extra time for me to really put things in their place and come up with some extra storage solutions. Also some motion activated lighting that's worked out really well. So I've come up with a couple pretty cool things, and yeah, I think we're pretty much done. So let me show you what I got. So starting up at the front here, you can see after we built the cases, we moved our big machines in to try to build the actual shelving system around our big items. So up front here I have my miter saw on a rolling stand on job sites 90% of the time, so having things on wheels is super efficient and effective for me. And then just using some of the actual body's frame members, I've got clamps and stuff like that clamped up there. And then we move on to my ladder system. So the ladder and my adjustable platform just slide right in there, and that is pretty friction fit. I built these with very tight tolerances, so I don't need to worry about straps or anything. And like I said, after a couple weeks of driving around on and off sites, nothing has fallen out yet. Inside to the left of the cargo door here, I've got just one of these little hangers that's holding my little flip-top outfeed stand and my broom and dustpan / shovel at the moment. Back here in the middle part of the cargo section, I have my table saw on a rolling stand as well, and I have some sawhorses stored in front of it. And up here I have a couple of little slots for my sandpaper, and then all my nail guns, all the staples and nails that I use for all my finished guns. Now, in lieu of any sort of straps or anything in here, I went ahead and just cut down some pieces of plywood, and in some other cases some pieces of poplar, just to act as little stops. So all the DeWalt Tough system, which is the storage system that I use predominantly, everything clips in together, so I've just taken advantage of that storage solution. Just put little stop, they have a little wall in the back, and then I put little stops in here so these can't jump out or roll out on me or anything like that. Now over on the passenger side, I ended up just utilizing the top of my shelving unit, and I took some 3/4 ply and just added that to the top of the shelving unit itself to act as a stop for all of my tool bags. Now just below that I have a single bank of drawers, 3 drawers, and to hold these shut for the time being I'm just using the spongy cord that's hooked onto the back of the shelving unit itself. Now what I did with these drawers, it's probably a little bougie, but I had some extra walnut laying around from some furniture projects. So I made these custom walnut drawer faces with a chamfered edge, along with custom walnut drawer pulls, just to add a little bit extra to it. As you can see, I put some poplar edge banding just to cover up all the edges of the plywood, just give it a little more finished look. And these basically are full of, when I buy all my Tough systems, sometimes they come with all these little compartments, but I don't necessarily utilize them for the reason I bought the actual box. So I've been saving these for a project at some point, and they came in really handy on this specific project. So I have framing nails, and then just some random screws, batteries, staplers, fasteners, all that kind of stuff. And these little storage compartments worked really well for this and ended up being the exact size I needed for that. So above that is all my different caulk and sealants and silicone construction adhesive, stuff that I use pretty regularly. And then above that is going to be more just miscellaneous fasteners. I've got a little jar of tung oil in here. And this is where I'm going to have a lot of, just the random things like wire nuts and drywall anchors, mollies, that kind of stuff. Some of the more like punch list kind of odd item things. And when I put these in, I went ahead and sprung the extra few bucks for a soft close drawer slide system. And it's probably a little bit extra for a work van, but I just wanted to make it look nice. Below that is my track saw, and again with just some stops in here so that it can't come out. I didn't opt for creating specific locations and all these drawers to hold every specific tool. I have these 2 bags that basically go to every job site with me, and I can just take them down and walk them right into the site without having to, I need vice grips here, I need a wrench here, I need chisels here, that kind of thing. So having all 3 of these things right up here eye level with me, just grab them down and walk off, is very efficient in my opinion. Moving to the middle of the unit on the passenger side, I went ahead and had this little extra space here, and it ended up fitting my laser level and a organizer of a bunch of random fasteners and stuff that I don't use a whole lot. There's a lot of self-tappers, hinge pins, extra hinges, just all that kind of like little odds and ends. Below that I have a space for my radio and my first aid kit, and then also a box of shims that fits in there really nicely. On the driver's side, we have more of my DeWalt Tough system containers. So I used to just have everything on this rolling setup down here, and I would just wheel the entire thing out and take it to the job site. But depending on where you get to park, that can be a little cumbersome taking everything with you and having to move this whole thing out of the van at once. So what I did is went ahead and built specific compartments, and I actually reorganized everything. So this is going to be all of my batteries, especially on the weekends, and when it gets cold I can just take this whole thing out and store it inside. I can take it into my shop and have a little charging party once I start running out of batteries that are fully charged. The second bin here is my sanders and routers. So it's, all my orbital sanders, my sheet sanders, my router systems, all my router jigs, hinge jigs, mortising jigs, all that kind of stuff. So that's all right there. And then down here is where I keep all of my nail guns. So that's all of my nail guns, my 16, my 18, my 23 gauge, my framing nailer, the oil, a handful of fasteners here and there. Everything I need for any sort of job where I have to do trim and stuff like that. And that's what I've really done here, is I've tried to organize everything based on the task the tools that task requires. So when I'm doing any sort of finishing, like, you route something down, well, obviously you need to get a sander and clean up all your edges. You're doing a trim job, you can grab this whole thing here, and it's got all the nail guns that I would use for a trim job. Just down to the back of that is where I have my little step ladders. And again, a lot of friction fit stuff. I build it with very tight tolerances so that everything is in there pretty tight, but it just takes a little, you just pull that out. You can pull that out very easily and stow it away. You don't have to worry about keeping it strapped down or anything. Moving to the rear here, I have these DeWalt storage containers with all the removable bins, and I have 3 of them, and so I keep them in here again with the stops so that they can't roll out or fall out or anything on me. One of them is more like Collins clamps and some lag screws, that kind of thing. I grouped all of my construction screws all in one, which is like all my deck screws and then Tapcons, concrete anchors, that sort of thing. And then my top one here is all of my finish hardware. So this is all like basically a cabinet setup. So it's cabinet screws, trim screws, all the different bits to go with them, all different kinds of links, anything that I would run across in a cabinet install, which I do pretty frequently. All right, moving to the very rear of the van here. So this was just a couple of places where I had some nice flat walls, and I decided to grab some more hooks and take advantage of that for storage solutions, such as for my extension cords, my air hoses, my caulk gun, and then my track saw box that I made not too long ago, and then hand painted the track saw lettering on it. That ended up sitting right up against there, and once it's strapped in, that doesn't go anywhere either. I have my Festool sander back here. This is the ETS EC150 5mm stroke. It doesn't go on a lot of job sites with me. That's mostly shop stuff, but I did have a little built-in I was doing a couple days ago that I took that with me to do some finish sanding. For whatever situation that you might confront on a job site, having a couple of 5-gallon buckets is very handy. So for instance, I was on a cabinet install the other day. So, you know, I have my little 20 volt max vacuum, and then there's also a couple of cabinet clamps, some other little squeeze clamps for doing all the face frames and that sort of thing. Behind that is my framing nailer. That's just I didn't want to lose the case to it. I didn't want to take it out of the case and just let it flop around in here. And so I decided to keep it in the case, and it actually ended up fitting in right there behind the shelf, and it's in there pretty tight as well. Now, just below all of my Tough System boxes, I also picked up one of these Tough System drawer boxes. So these have locking drawers, and that's in there again with the stops, and this is holding some extra drawer slides and some tape and random stuff like that. And then this is my Craig screw drawer. So my all my Craig jigs, like all my fasteners, clamps, everything has to do with any sort of pocket hole joinery, that all goes right in there. And the nice thing about these is when you shut them, they won't open without popping that little handle. So no need to strap that down or anything, they won't come out. Now this being my rolling, the bottom of my rolling Tough System, that has all my rough construction tools. So it's jigsaw, sawzall, grinder, finish tool, circular saw. So basically anytime I'm doing a new build or doing demo, that can roll right onto the job site with me. And the nice thing about having everything separate is I'll take that in, and whatever I'm doing that day, if I'm doing trim, then I can just throw the whole nail gun box on top of that, throw some batteries on top of that, and take off and have everything I need on site very easy. And then this little compartment here, I didn't really have any ideas for it, so I just put my socket set in there. Again, not something I use all the time, just occasionally doing plumbing or fixtures or, you know, something like that. All right, on the passenger side, on the bottom bays, this is where I keep my shop vacs, and I have a roll of a RAM board, just a little bit of floor covering in there. And also I have my little cordless fan sitting here too. I do keep my Festool vac in here. I do plug that into my sanders and my miter saw when I'm using it on clean sites, you know, so I can have my saw set up inside if I need to. And then I have my big demo vac that is just for general shop cleanup, but also I have it modified so that it plugs into my table saw, so I can have my entire saw system inside with a minimal amount of dust. All right, on the rear of my passenger side here, I went ahead and made this something that's basically where all my consumables are stored. So my paper towels and all my glues and a little bit of spray paint, kills, just little stuff like that that I can sometimes need for remodeling, just in a pinch sort of thing. So I built these boxes, and they're just screwed into the actual shelving unit itself. And I modified this one so I can just bring this out, and I can take this on job site with me. And when I'm done, I can just pop it right back in there, and also makes it easier to change that out whenever I run out. Up here in my glue storage caddy, this is just where I have some wood filler, gloves, tack cloths, multiple glues, some mineral spirits, my little glue bot, and all my Star Bond and instant adhesive stuff. Having that stuff right at the end of the van to be able to walk out and grab it in a pinch is very, very helpful. And right below that is my 6-gallon DeWalt air compressor. Now I gotta say, one of my favorite little storing solutions of this van are my level holders. Again, with just some pieces of walnut scrap that I had laying around, I just cut these little L brackets, and my levels can just sit right on top of there. So they're just glued in, and then a long trim screw run through just for a little bit of extra stability. And when I'm done with the level, that sits in there, and then that one is made, so it just sits in like that. I think that's a little solution that's worked out really well for me so far. And I almost forgot, obviously one of the most important things about this van build is my microwave. Now, I don't have an inverter or anything like that set up, so to run any sort of power to this, I do have to run shore power, so just running extension cord from the house or whatever. This is something that I don't know that I'll use a whole lot, but I had seen in some other work van vehicle videos that I had watched, and I thought it might not be a bad idea. And I think this might be more of a winter addition to this thing, but we're gonna leave it in there for now and just kind of see how much we use it. and if we don't use it very much, then I'll take it back out and that's a little bit more storage. Now, even though my ProMaster is the shortest one at 139 inches wheelbase, I did build this anticipating that I would be able to build it with some idea that it would grow and evolve with me. Now, after I had built storage and I basically had everything accounted for that I wanted to store in here, I ended up with this massive compartment right here over my table saw. The beautiful thing about having something like this, you know, and not racking my brain about what to do and to fill it, over the last couple weeks, I've realized that having this little platform here is actually really nice because I can pull this out and set that down, and I can pop it open, I can get what I need, I can grab a handful of fasteners, I can grab things out of the drawers and set them here and kind of look at and kind of gather what I need. So for right now, this little open compartment is just going to stay an open compartment. One of the last things I wanted to go through was some cargo lighting that I put in. I went through all kinds of options about running inverters and then LED strips, and they have all those cool little 3D printed adapters for DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee batteries that you can run a whole system off of a battery. I may end up upgrading to that eventually, but for right now, what I wanted to do was just something simple and easy. So I found these. They're like an Amazon thing. I think they were 40 bucks for 5 bars. And these are just magnets, so they're magnetic on the back and they just clip right up here. The bond isn't as strong as I was hoping it was going to be, but I've been driving around for 2 weeks with these in and none of them have fallen down or anything. Now, one of the big things that I confronted with my issue with having any sort of internal power with inverters and a LED strip, I didn't want the power to stay on all the time. I'm in and out of the van, I'm on the job site most of the time. So these actually have a motion detection sensor on them. It comes with this little remote. I can set all the different timers and all kinds of stuff, you know, night mode, dark mode, all the time, you know, turn the light up and down, which I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. I keep it at bright all the time. So it is nice to have something that just turns on as I walk into the van. USB chargeable, they come with a charging bank, so at the end of the day I can plug them in, but I've had them running for about a week now and I haven't had to recharge them. But I think that's due to the fact that they're not on all the time. So having them on a motion detector has been really, really helpful, and so far, so good. And lastly, back here at the bulkhead, I've just been using this to store some moving blankets, drop cloths, and then this has all my bungee cords and ratchet straps. This is more like rig maintenance stuff here, trash bags, that kind of thing. That's all working pretty good for what it is right now, and I don't see any need to change it, so I think I'm just gonna roll with that for the time being. And I think that's pretty much gonna do it. So I appreciate you coming along for this build. Really fun, really enjoyable. This has been working out for me really well. Like I said, there are spaces for me to evolve and for this storage system to evolve with me. One thing that I do want to say is there's a lot of options for doing this in one of your own rigs. Please do not allow yourself to be YouTube paralyzed with so many options. Sometimes it's okay just to get some materials, start building some things, make some mistakes, learn as you go. Just having a space available where everything is right where you need it and just getting yourself a little bit more organized can, in my opinion and in my experience, has reduced a lot of anxiety and a lot of anger that I can confront during the day of trying to move stuff to get to something. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you get out and build something, you know, like this or not like this, but I hope this was helpful, and get out there and set up your own rig, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.